I'm going to take you through a couple things. I'm just going to go ahead and I just want to pass. Yes. This is just my business card and a little. Can I keep one of them out? Thank you. This little overview is just an updated bit of information about the Hollings. Really, what most of you probably know about it is that it's a major award. That Eckerd College is the nation's top producer of Hollings scholars. So every year, we've been able to kind of keep ourselves at the top of the list because of the quality of our students. So last year, we were really fortunate. We had 9 students win the Hollings. That was the most that we've ever had. We normally average between 3 to 5. So, of course, now everybody at Eckerd is like, are we going for 10? And I'm like, of course I want to go for 10. But it's really not about kind of Eckerd in a sense. It's about you and what you offer, the opportunity. And so this is just a little breakdown. And so I strongly encourage you just to kind of take a look at it. It just kind of gives you a heads up about what the Hollings is and how you might want to think about targeting the application. I do have some Hollings scholars who, like I said, Jeff's going to be calling in. I've got a couple other people that have applied for it before and that can give you some really good insights into what you want to do on the application and what you might not want to do on the application. There's no magic formula for it, though. Just FYI, there's no one stop. This will always get you the Hollings. The Hollings is awarded to anywhere from 300 to 400 students a year. It is an award that is given through NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. It is through a government-funded program. So last year when the government shut down, we did have a little bit of a delay in announcing, which was a little bit stressful because, of course, we were waiting to hear. Normally we hear from the Hollings organization on the status of the application right around spring break. It usually works out right during spring break. And they don't announce it to you, right? What do? They don't even tell you.
You have to log on.
You log on to your application, and that's where you find out if you've been accepted or not accepted. And so usually what happens is someone is militantly checking it, right? And they will then, as soon as they hear or see, they will email me, and then I email the group and say, look at your email, go to the application. And then at that point, it's a cascade of happiness and all that other good stuff. But it always happens usually around spring break, so then students are not by their computers, and so there's inevitably a little bit of a delay. But that last year was an outlier. This year, the expectation is that it will be due on January 31st, and that's a hard deadline. The deadline for, let me just see, I believe it's at 11:59 Eastern Time. I always like to just check and make sure. Because sometimes students, I did have a student a couple years ago that turned it in. It is 11:59. I had a student that she was working on it. She fell asleep. She woke up at like 3 a.m. Was like, I need to submit it. There's no submitting. There's none. It's not a soft deadline. It's a hard deadline. So I always tell students, I'm like, just don't wait until the 31st, right? In some ways, the best thing you can do is turn it in, a day or two early, if not
A week.
Early, right?
I turned in my fellowship applications starting when I was your age, actually all the way up until now. I turned them in a week early because something always happens that no one can predict.
And the last thing you want is to miss out on something like this because of a technical glitch, and this is the other thing. During this time period, some of you may or may not be going on a winter term. And if you're going on a winter term, you don't know the status of, in some places they say the Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi, right? So you might get somewhere and you might not have access to the same type of connectivity. So just go ahead and in some ways get yourself in a good place. So put on your timeline, put on a reminder, whatever you need, that you're gonna submit it like the 30th, right? Or the 28th or the 24th, right? So that you can remember it. Everything is due at this time. In the past, they have done this weird staggered thing where they tried to make like recommendation letters due a week before and then make your whole application due. And that was in a way to try to get letter writers to get it in. It didn't work. Faculty and letter writers were like, nope, we're turning it in when you turn it in. So everything is due on the 31st. Now, we'll kind of go into the nuts and bolts of it. But the big picture, kind of big takeaways for tonight is you need to know the deadline, you need to know what your expectations are for the actual Hollings, and then of course the big thing that you need to take away is how are you going to successfully argue that you're the best candidate for this? Because it's not just saying I'm in marine science at Eckerd College, because that's just kind of that's the minimum, right? It's not just saying I have a 3.0, which is the minimum, right? It's not just saying I really love the ocean. Everyone that's applying for this loves the ocean, right? Or my favorite, I have wanted to protect the ocean since I was a child. And fantastic, great. These are all bare minimums, right? So instead of telling them those things, right, you need to learn how to show them that. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. Your drafts, when you start this essay that you have to write for the Hollings, they're going to be crappy and a little bit cheesy, okay? People that have written them, I see a bunch. How many drafts would you say you guys wrote? 10?
Too many.
Too many? No, there's no numeric count?
Yeah, like 7 or 8.
Yes. And many cheesy drafts, right? The first one was definitely like, my heart beats with the beat of the saltwater ocean. I'm not kidding, I've read these. My favorite is always like, I saved all life. Okay. I don't know how you're gonna show that, right? The big key to the Hollings is the essay. 60% of the deciding factor for your application is the essay. So 60% of the rubric, it's evaluated by 3 individuals at NOAA, is based on what you say in this essay. It's 6,000 to 9,000 characters, so it's not a ton of runway, but it's also not short. And so within this kind of character, I guess you'd say, I wanted to say character circus, but that's not the appropriate metaphor. This very targeted and focused statement is where you're going to really make your plea. Now, the other parts of the application that are really important are your letters of recommendation. Your letters, the first one is and they do require that one has to be from a college professor, has to be someone that has taught you at the college level, not in a dual enrollment, not in an AP, but actually like here in this space, right? Or if you've done another class in another institution, you can do that too. This was a requirement last year that both of them be professors who had taught you. And we unfortunately had an individual who chose someone that supervised her for freshman research. And Hollings was like, oh, we wish we would have made that more clearer because you would have been a great candidate. But unfortunately, it wasn't clear. She just listed herself as a supervisor. And she didn't get it. And so you want to be really specific when you pick your letter writers that they fit the category, right? So a professor who taught you is very different from someone you did freshman research with. That doesn't mean they can't be the same person, particularly if you took a class with that individual, right? But you want to first pick someone that can speak to your academic abilities, and that's what they're looking for in reference to that. Now, for the most part, sophomores have been here 3 semesters at most schools, but at Eckerd, you've actually been here for 5, right? Because we have autumn term and winter terms. So you actually have a little bit more runway. So I would suggest finding someone that you have a relationship with. Now, some of you are probably going like, oh, who do I have a relationship with? And in a sense, it's not so much that this is someone that you hang out and have coffee with, but someone that you have actually been to their office hours, that you've read some of their, maybe some of their publications, that you might have possibly assisted or volunteered with them, that you might have done some research with, but that they kind of know who you are and they have evidence to support you, right? Evidence to support why you're a good candidate. So if this means if you don't kind of feel like you have that established, it's a good time to start right now, right? Find out where your professors are, who you had in your freshman year, stop by their office, give them, go to the library, pull up one of their research articles, take a read at it, sit down and say, hey, I'm really interested in the Hollings. I really appreciated what you said in this research piece you just published. I really, and maybe not use really all the time, I feel that you might be able to write a good recommendation for me. I would like you to, kind of consider if you have the time to do that, and if you have enough information about me to do it, right? A lot of times, professors will want you to give them at least a resume or a CV, the curriculum vitae, the academic life. If you don't have one of those yet, it's okay, you'll get one. But at least if you have a list of why you're applying to the Hollings, right? Just a little bit of information so that when they're setting down and they're typing up their information, that they're then able to say, this is why this student is a good candidate. And that's going to help to get you into that next area of the Hollings, right?
Dr. Keck,
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the letters of recommendation, something else to be aware of is the faculty members' timeline.
Yes.
And how much time they need. So one of you in here has class with me, and you'll notice that in my syllabus, I asked for, if possible, a minimum of 3 weeks notice. When I was in school, my professors, I don't think this happens here, but I had professors who said, I want 6. Yeah, I have had professors who said, I want a whole month and a half. I don't think anyone here would necessarily do that, but do be aware that faculty members are probably writing other letters, they're doing lots of other things, so if you come to them and say, hey, this is due in 3 days and I kind of just need this, are you busy?
You remember me.
They probably will not be especially enthusiastic about it, so make sure that you're also giving them enough time because they want to do a good job on this.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big thing too is that you're working with them in a sense. This is the first time for I will say for most of you that you're approaching someone in a sense almost like a future colleague, because you're not saying to them, "Hey, I want to get in your class," or "I want to go on your winter term." You're basically saying, "I want you to endorse me as a researcher for NOAA," which is one of the first stages to being a colleague, right? So you're approaching them with that level of respect. And I think time frame is important. And believe me, it's stressful because this is due during winter term. And so a lot of professors are leading these winter terms and these far-flung destinations.
Yeah, they might not be here.
They may not. Or they may be traveling. They may not be in the same kind of availability that they normally are. So give them enough time. And it doesn't hurt to start now. Almost all of our faculty members know about the Hollings. It's something that's kind of out and about. So if you say that you're interested in it, it's not like it's going to be something foreign. I will say there is a caveat. We have, of course, the human experience on-term kind of cycle, and those professors, even if they are not in the discipline, are sometimes good reviewers of you as an individual. The 2 letters that are required is one needs to be a college professor that teaches you in your discipline, right? The other can be either a college professor or it can be a supervisor that has watched you in your research. There is an option this year. It's not 2 professors, right? So your second letter writer could be a human experience professor. They may not know about the Hollings, right? They may just not have an awareness of it, and so at that point, it might take you a little bit of time to reach out, to explain to them what this is, how important it is, and then to make the argument that you're a really good candidate for it. I know last year, Annalise, last year, I think, yeah, it was last year, Annalise had Heather Vincent, who was her human experience professor, who is a ancient studies and Greek professor. And she was like, I want to make sure I'm writing this well because I don't write these types of letters or these types of support. So it's okay to do that with your human experience professor, but you want to give them also enough time to know what this opportunity is. I would caution against picking anyone I would not pick like bosses or like individuals that have supervised you outside of either the science or kind of research or kind of education conservation. Those don't have a tendency to translate well. I think the ones that translate best are if you did do like a summer camp where you were doing environmental conservation and education, then that's perfect. But if you had a summer job where you sold ice cream, probably would not pick your ice cream guy. Because what Hollings is looking for is evidence of the mission statement. The 3 prongs of the mission statement that you want to keep in mind are science, service, and stewardship. Those are your 3 S's, right? They do drill down into a kind of a very developed sense of education and conservation, but at the end of it, you're using those 3 as kind of the placeholders for like why you're gonna be a good candidate for that type of experience. Which means you don't just have to be a marine science student to apply for this. We've had students in environmental studies win it, students in psychology and biology, students in journalism, students in human development. The big thing though is that you need to find your niche for the Hollings. And one of the best things you can do is you can go to NOAA's homepage and just kind of do a little bit of exploration about what NOAA kind of is and what they kind of offer. There's a lot of information on here, and there's a lot of different areas that you can look into. It's not just all going into, getting on a boat, collecting samples. Some of the most impactful Hollings experiences have been students where they went and they taught. They developed curriculum for translating scientific knowledge into a community. Others that have been really interesting are ones that have been about collection of different, I guess you'd say, data points that have been completely outside the lab, right? That have been not at all what you would expect. And then there, of course, have been some very traditional ones. Because as you know, the Hollings gives you $9,500 in scholarship for your junior year, $9,500 for your senior year, but it's that 10-week paid internship in the summer between your junior and senior year that's so important. Because that gives you not just money and kind of that kind of prestige of getting it, but actual experience and networking opportunities, which I think helps. And hopefully when Jeff Skypes in, helped him to kind of get that level of expertise that got him the Fulbright and then got him into, of course, the PhD program. So before we kind of launch into things, questions or concerns that are kind of popping up about anything we kind of covered so far?
Was the campus deadline?
What that is a way, in the past we've had students that have made the decision to apply late, and they either weren't able to get recommendation letters because faculty have left basically after December for the holidays, and then they might be gone until January. We've also missed students who didn't know that it was due in January that were like, oh, I thought it was like due in the spring. So what we instituted about 3 years ago is a basic soft campus deadline. You submit through Google, you submit the names of your recommenders, which is a good way for me to then reach out to them and say, you have these letters of support. And also we ask that you submit a very basic essay, just so that we can see where you are. Because as we leave after that first week in December, as we transition into finals and then everyone leaves, what then happens with me is I start meeting with students who are on holiday break via Skype, WhatsApp, FaceTime, Google Hangout, and we start chit-chatting about those drafts. because it usually takes, as we were just talking about, a number of drafts to get yourself in a good space, so that you're not just turning in this document that's like, I love the ocean and it is fantastic and it is where I feel comfortable, right? But so that you're writing something that's like, my philosophy is X, Y, and Z, or my hope is to translate my beginning passion into academic study and into research, meaningful research, so that I can, participate in science, service, and stewardship, right? So we can start to build that. So that's what we do with Canvas Deadline. If you miss it or something happens, it's not like you can't apply for it. It's a way for us though to make sure that you're getting the resources you need. It's also a way for us to, we don't have a large faculty, right? So I like to let the faculty know you have been listed as, like 10 students have listed you as a letter writer. Are you aware that you're gonna have 10 letters, right? So that they are also aware of to make sure that you've talked to them. So good question. Other questions? I am recording this. It will be posted up. The one thing that I do every year is I put it on my LibGuide. So, and it's under the fellowship area, under Hollings. You'll see that there's one from the 2017, there's one from 2018, and now there'll be one from 2019 up there too, over here in this little area. I also put over here some tips and suggestions, because those are some, kind of good things to look at. I also just want to share, if I can get to my drive. I also am very happy, sorry. I'm also fine to kind of work with you on some different, I should say, sorry, but can't talk and type. I will also kind of be happy to work with you on your drafts, and I'm also happy to share different types of documents and help with, help for you to access in regards to the actual application. Oh, of course, the two-step verification. Don't you just love that now? So much easier. Okay. So on Google Drive, and I can share these with you at any point, I have a number of different types of documents. One that I have found that a lot of students, that I share with a lot of students and have, is a very basic outline. This is not by any stretch of the imagination definitive, and you shouldn't probably say that this is, if it follows this, I'll get it, but these are the criteria that you're gonna wanna make sure that you have in your actual essay. I usually recommend, if you're drafting, that you start with a narrative of some sort. You don't have to, but a lot of students find this to be the best space to kind of get themselves started. You want to, of course, pick a narrative that kind of fits with Hollings. Some students have found that that's not a place for them to start, and that's perfectly fine. The past, present, and future are things that the prompt specifically asks you about. And I say you can go to high school. They're perfectly fine with you looking at high school. They know that you've been here for 3 semesters for the most part, right? For normal sophomores. So you can look back to high school. You can look at present, classes, experiences, the service that you're doing. And then, of course, your future. I put grad school in there because most of the time most of the students are referencing graduate school work. You do not need to know which graduate school or who you're going to be working under or any of those types of minute information. You can say as simple as like, I'm considering going to graduate school in 2 to 5 years after graduation, right? Or graduate school is part of my plan for the next 40 to 60 years of my career, like time, however you want to frame it, right? But the big thing you want to think about is how the future work you want to do kind of corresponds to NOAA and their mission. So getting really familiar with what NOAA is doing is important. knowing about the Nancy Foster Scholarship. How many of you know about Nancy Foster? It's another scholarship from NOAA. It's right now, they haven't opened it yet. Last year it was $136,000 worth of support for graduate work. Yeah, plus some really good support to do actual lab work through NOAA. Not connected to NOAA, but connected is the NSF, GRFP, or the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which is a graduate fund that pays up to $172,000 this year. It was just due October 21st was the first cycle. So you mentioning those types of awards that you're looking at are all connected in some way with the research you want to do. Thinking about like what it is that resonates with you about education and conservation, science, service, and stewardship. Those types of programs, right? And then of course the conclusion is like where you tell them why you're great, right? Why you tell them that you're the best fit. Now to do this with this outline, it's not, the first draft is going to be, Annie Lamont, who's a writing instructor, says we have to write through a bunch of shitty first drafts to get to where we need to be. The first draft of this is not going to be good, okay? It's okay, embrace it now, let it be. No one at all. I wish they could, but they don't, right? So sit down, draft it out, put your ideas down, let it be a big document. Don't worry about 6,000 to 9,000 characters. Just dump it out, right? Then what you're going to do is you're going to continue to work on it. Maybe it's 20 minutes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the rest of the semester. Maybe it's 20 minutes once a week. It's kind of up to where you have the time frame right now, but start now. And then you're going to also probably want to kind of chit chat with your peers. The Marine Science Club, I know, does a lot of work to kind of set up different workshops and different ideas. They usually participate in the peer workshop that we have. We will do a peer review workshop where we have everyone come. We usually grab pizza, we kind of hang out, we do peer revisions. You guys help each other. We have current and former Hollings scholars come in and do that. Allison, Professor Quattrini, is also a resource. She will read your drafts. I will read your drafts. I will meet with you virtually over the holiday break because you're going to be working on these. It is not going to be something that you're going to sit down and just wing it and it's just going to like levitate. Be like, oh, there it is. No. It's going to be more like, I can't believe I wrote that. Like, why? That hurts me, right? No. You're going to have to write and rewrite. Now, the benefit of doing this now is that this is going to help you because you're also, I'm going to assume most of you are probably applying to some summer stuff too, the NSF REUs, the Research Experience for Undergrads. And so you're going to want to go ahead and use some of that material for those NSF REUs too, right? As far as the essay goes, though, it's the big bear. And most students start now, and they've already started, and they're kind of continually refreshing and reviewing it. This is also a great thing to share with your letter writers, because then they understand what it is you care and what it is you want to do. This does mean you need to look at the NOAA website and figure out maybe some of the things that they're doing. I know that last year you guys had a problem because the government shut down, so they weren't updating their website. So literally you would go there and they would be like, we can't help you. So you do not have that problem this year. So you can go and you can take a look and say, hey, I'm really interested in what research is being done through the coastal program, specifically in regards to coral, right? You can look at a number of different tools. You can search very simply. You can do coral research, if that's kind of where you're finding yourself. And they have a variety of different networks that you can look into. You could cite or pull in information from this, which could be a good, helpful resource. You can also look at some other programs that they're doing. You can talk about like what type of mission they might have. And these are going to all be things that you can start to pull in to your actual application and to that actual essay. But the essay is the big part of the Hollings. Questions or worries about the essay? Are you all like, okay?
Do you ever have students whose essays are like way too long
Mm-hmm.
and have trouble?
We have students all the time that are way too long. Okay, I'm just seeing it. Oh, I missed a call. Crap. I'll have to get him to call back later. Yes, too long. Yes, characters are. Yes, they are.
It'll cut you off,
It will.
actually.
It will.
Okay.
The best thing you can do with it being too long is realize that most of the time, if not all the time, you're always going to be able to find some unnecessary phrases, clauses, sentences that you don't need. Now, it's going to be hard for you to see them because you're going to be in it. And this is the other side of this essay that's really hard is that this is you. You're not writing about some weird esoteric form of science, right? You're writing about why you're this great candidate. So it's going to be even harder for you to figure out, like, what about me needs to be cut off, right?
Well, we can help you with that.
Exactly.
Because there's probably going to be a lot, because there's probably going to be a lot of places that are sort of repetitive. So if you give the essay to me, I'll be able to look at your sentences and say, okay, well, see in this fourth sentence, that's the same thing that you said in your second sentence. So that fourth sentence can just go. Because you've already said it, you don't need to say it twice.
Well, and I think the being too long, I was actually going to pull up, if I can, I'll grab my password. Every year I always set up my own account, like I'm applying for the Hollings, so I'm pretty sure they think I keep failing my sophomore year of college. But yet they don't cut me off. So I just want to go ahead and pull up so that you can kind of see if you haven't had a chance yet to look at it, so that you can kind of see what it looks like. And as you know, as Professor Quattrini mentioned, it does cut you off. So what you'll see when you look at the actual application is kind of just a breakdown. This is where you guys are like getting PTSD, like oh yes. You'll look at this a lot in the coming years, or at least it'll feel like the years. Basically, the general information. This is general information. You are driven by your graduation date. So even if you're a junior, you're a chronological sophomore. That's who can apply, right? So that's kind of where you want to go. And the only other gatekeeper is the GPA. It has to be 3.0. And it has to be 3.0 the whole time you have the Hollings. That's one of the other requirements. We had a little bit of a scare a couple years ago when a student's GPA was looking like it was going to fall below that and they were going to lose their funding. So you want to I know that some of you are thinking organic chem. So really, it's an important. It's not just a gatekeeper; it's a maintainer too. The actual contact information is pretty redundant. You will get an actual official transcript. You'll do this through the registrar, and you'll do it with a PDF copy. I have it kind of a screen capture that explains how to do it because it doesn't make sense and it confuses the heck out of every student. Also, if you are listed as a junior, right, you will need to get basically a document either from myself or from the registrar that says you are a chronological sophomore, you will be graduating in X, Y, and Z. It's a really simple document. We merge those with your transcript so you can upload it. It's not scary. But it is for chronological sophomores. So because of this push towards AP credit, dual enrollment credit, tons of students have way more credits than they should have as a sophomore. So they do have this categorization just to make sure it's clear. You can have the registrar do kind of an enrollment verification, or I'll do it too. I can pull your records also.
What if we've already got our transcript?
You'll want to wait until after this semester. You took the gun on that one. You're like, I got it, because you want them to be able to see your fall, right? Because that's another bit of evidence for it. So yeah. But good that you got it. No, you're welcome. Yeah, so you've been through it. That's okay. It's always nice to have a transcript, right? Carry it around. Don't have mine, but yeah, it's one point. The other thing down at the bottom of this tab is where it says formal or informal research experience, okay? I will tell you that you don't have to have formal lab experience to get the Hollings, but we've shown pretty consistently that you need to have at least some informal or some volunteering. There's lots of opportunities here to get it, so take advantage of it. This does not count for your labs, like classes with labs. Yeah.
Formal research experience would be that you have a job and you get paid.
Some of it, yes, or freshman research program, or if you're working with the plastics, the microplastics here, or Greg Brooks's research, or if you did an REU as a freshman, like I know Bella, you got an REU last year, so that's formal research. I mean, all of that counts, right? Informal counts too. If you volunteered for Professor Sueda's and Galvin's Dolphin Research Project, another good one. Samar's Bioacoustics. Jesse Fly and Noel Bouquet's, the work they're doing with sustained sustenance fishing in the area, right? So anything that you can do counts, right? You've been over at the Florida Fish and Wildlife Pathobiology Lab, also counts, right?
And you can run that by us if you're not sure about something, or if you come to us and say, but I really don't have anything, you probably do. You can think very broadly about this, and we'll help you figure out if you actually do have something.
And if you've been admitted to something in the spring, you can put down the dates that are pending. You can put down future dates for pending. And this description box looks really small, but it actually takes about like 4 to 5 bullet list, right? So it actually carries quite a bit more. But that is another thing to kind of consider, and that you've done enough time now, so you're going to want to kind of like make sure you're thinking about those types of strategies as you're moving forward. Now this awards, honors, extracurriculars, non-academic, volunteer, and entrepreneurship. These boxes under activities, don't write them in paragraphs, okay? Make it like a resume. List the opportunity you got, list the date that you got it, list the amount for the awards, honors, and fellowships.
Do spaces count?
Spaces do count. So
Don't skip one.
yeah, you wanna, well, you know what, spaces don't count on this.
They don't count. So
They
you can
don't,
skip
yeah.
lines.
Yeah, you can skip lines.
Some of them you can't.
No, this one does. Yeah, because I'm like, wait a minute, no, we formatted it. So they want to be able to give support to people who've got support. Our presidential scholarship, I think, is now $21,000 a year, right? Over 4 years, that's a lot of support that's been given to our student, right? Any type of award, honor society, scholarship, any recognition that you received, even in high school, right? I would not go back to the 3rd grade soil and conservation essay that you won. That's way too far back. But you can pull in those awards and accolades, right? Do it like a resume. List the opportunity, list the date, list the amount, maybe a brief description. 2,000 characters is quite a bit. Don't try to do it in a paragraph. It's just going to take way too much.
So merit scholarship would count for that?
National Merit Scholarship
For sure.
definitely,
Yes,
without a doubt.
Yes, that should be there.
Yeah, and anything that you feel supports your candidacy too. So it can be something that you might have received that you feel like isn't that big. It's like a $50 award, right? But it was recognition that your advocacy assisted in developing a program or helping with the program. That's perfectly fine to mention. Extracurricular and non-academic, these are segmented. Extracurricular are school-related. Volunteer that are non-academic or entrepreneurship, i.e. jobs, those are kind of down in that bottom area. Extracurricular, put things that show that you can be a team kind of player, that you participated in leadership, because the other thing that Hollings is doing is they're not just trying to find the best researchers, They're gonna put you in a lab, they're gonna put you in a research space, and they're gonna expect you to do something with it. And with others. And they wanna pick people that are compatible and that can work well under that kind of stress, right? So things that can show them that are gonna be good. A lot of times, under the non-academic volunteer and entrepreneurship activities, those are times for you to show like what you've done kind of outside. Maybe things that maybe don't always reference that type of like scientific perspective, but maybe education or conservation, maybe things that you maybe jobs that you've had. One student, Kyle Vincent, who graduated last year, he is with NOAA Core now. He actually put in there that he's worked for the same ice cream shop for like 12 summers. I mean, since he was a child, right? And he put it in there, and one of his reviewers said, when the application came back, that kind of continuity and commitment was just really indicative of like a solid candidate, someone that they knew was going to be able to do this. So, and Kyle was really like, I'm going to put that ice cream shop on there. I'm like, put it on there. Like, you spent this much time, right? And I'm not saying that all of you have to like write your ice cream shop story, right? But you don't always have to think really, in a sense, linear. What you're trying to do is show them that you've had these responsibilities that you're then able to do something with, that it really highlights those kind of skills and those types of development, that type of motivation. This is not going to also be done in 15 minutes.
So for like honor societies and stuff, they would go under like the award.
Yes.
And then if you held like a position of office in any of those societies, would that also be important to put in there?
I would definitely put those in the service component, unless it was something that was like I would say certain levels of recognition probably are an award in a sense versus things that you participated in a way as that you were kind of doing the duty and the responsibility for the office versus something that was an honorific. Like if you were, I would put what you, like you're president of the National Honor Society chapter, right? Because you guys also did a bunch of service through that group. And I put that in the academic area activities, but I put like, invited participant or invited member of the National Honor Society there, right? Any kind of academic honors you received, but in that top space, right? Anything that you had published or that you presented, I would also put there too. Any type of award or recognition that you received, I would also put in that space too. Even if it's something that you guys won state in something, whether it's jazz quartet or whether it's volleyball, that's an award. That's something that you won. You can put that you were a member of the team in that area down below. Good question, sir. This is going to take some time. Yeah.
Can we put conferences that we would?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Especially if you present it.
Yeah. The women like that.
Oh, definitely.
Oh my gosh.
That makes so much sense. And that shows them in a really meaningful way that you've already learned to translate some of what you do with what you want to say and how you might want to motivate others. So definitely.
What if like you submitted an abstract but you don't have
You can put pending. You can, and we do it all the time. Or if it's something that's been submitted, or for instance, like with the research symposia in the spring, if you're going to be submitting something there, you can put, proposal to be submitted. You can put that in parentheses after it.
I did research in a subject that's not one I'm going for.
Yes.
Everything, because then they'll say like, oh, okay, this is a person who's done this. They know what is expected. We could probably trust them with this opportunity. This is somebody we can bank on.
And they don't expect you. I mean, they do not expect you as a sophomore to know what your research agenda looks like. They don't. Like, and I don't expect you either. Like, I've had students that are like, this is where I'm going. And I'm like, you're a freshman. You cannot possibly. And some take it as a challenge. And they're like, wait, I do. And I'm like, okay, we'll talk in 4 years. It'll be good. So it's okay to show them the set and the range that you have, the skills that you've accumulated, the interests that you have. If you were in a club last year that you're not in a club anymore, that's okay. You can put down your range of time with an organization. They're not gonna hold you to this. Also, if you say you're gonna go to graduate school or you wanna do this kind of research, but then you go to the Hollings symposium that's in the end of the spring semester and you meet someone and they're doing great research and you're like, I wanna do that, they're not gonna take the Hollings away from you because you don't do what you said you were gonna do in your essay. You know, this is your exploration of what you wanna do, not a commitment to it. Did you guys change your perspective? No, you didn't. You're like, I'm locked in.
Yeah.
Both of you guys are locked in. You've also known what you wanted to do forever, I'm sure. But that's okay. Like I said, we'll talk. But you can really have the opportunity to have this kind of exploration and to think about how these are moments to show you this, right? The last part of the second part is, yeah, this should pull up. This is your references. So you'll see that I submitted my own reference letter to myself. So you'll see the reference form is January 31st. They would like them to be in on the 24th, but it's not a requirement.
Little warning here, it's good to make sure you have a professor's agreement that they will write a letter for you before you fill this out, because this will automatically send a link to them, and the last thing you want is for a faculty member to look at this and be like, what?
And delete it?
Yes, because sometimes these do go to spam folders, so you also want to alert whoever's writing their letter that they will be getting this, and to watch for it, and if they don't get it, that they need to check their spam folder.
Yeah, because it will inevitably happen. Because I have my account set up for my own Hollings, they won't let Hollings applicants write Hollings letters of recommendations. So when I have written student letters for particularly my human experience students, I always have to use my private email because it won't work. So, and if the faculty member has a NOAA contract, they also sometimes do not receive the email because the way that the spam filters work for the government are way more Byzantine than our spam folders. So do check with them. They will receive a link, and then you will also be able to see when they've submitted it, right? They will get basically a live link that they can click on. It only gives them 20 minutes at a time to put information in. It's 2 blocks of text. It's 8,000 characters at the top and another 8,000 characters at the bottom. So it's 16,000 characters that they can write about you. There are a little bit of like some bubbles that they'll complete about your leadership ability, your scientific rationale, things like that. But the real big meat of it are those blocks. You want to make sure that you get these to your professors, that they know that you're getting them, that they're prepared, and so that they can start writing it, so they can get this submitted. Yeah.
On the sheet, it doesn't say anything about them having to be in what I'm going for, but you said they have to be in some.
No, if you scroll up, Allison, you'll see the first one here, 2 references are required. You'll see applicants must identify the name, title, and email address of the 2 individuals, right? At least one of the reference forms must be from a professor, visiting professor, or lecturer who's taught you at the undergraduate level, or a department chair, dean, or academic advisor. What I'm recommending is a stronger person for that is someone in your discipline. It's not required that it has to be in your discipline. It is required that they've had to teach you in this capacity. The second one is anyone that can speak to your capabilities and interests. Teaching assistants, advisor, mentors, volunteer internship, other areas. I would not say our teaching assistants, okay? Our teaching assistants are your peers. I love your peers, but I would not say these are
for people at large schools.
Yeah.
So like the people who are at USF,
our grad students.
those graduate students.
Yeah.
Like who Dr. Kat and I used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Years ago.
Yeah, when you go to a large institution, Research One institutes have their graduate students teach their introductory courses.
I used to write letters for students like you when I was at GW.
Yeah. And they were
But that was appropriate.
Yeah. because you're a teaching assistant, but not this one.
But yeah, not in the school,
No.
because you all have actual professors.
Yeah, so, they do, suggest that you can do NOAA staff, you can do NOAA employees, but they do have, like, you see these requirements for certain types of email addresses. So that's something a little more specified, but you'll want to pay attention to that. Questions on recommendations. Little tidbit. Say thank you after they wrote it, right?
And please let your recommenders know what happened, whether you got it or not. I can't tell you how many people I have had to hunt down, or how many people just disappeared and never spoke to me again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still wondering about some people from 8 years ago.
You're like, did you get it or not?
Yes, I still don't know. And I never will.
Because these are also hopefully going to be the people that are going to write other letters for you, or at least give you some tips or suggestions, right, for other opportunities.
Yeah, keep up with them.
Thank you notes are the best thing. I'll tell you right now, you're going to be asking for more letters from this person at any point in the future. Just jot down a little note, thank you note. You don't have to be, I have had hand-drawn ones, which are absolutely fantastic, but I'm not saying that you have to do that, right? But take the time to say thank you, right? What also will happen now, too, is that as you start to apply for other things, these people are going to be writing more and more letters for you. And so this just kind of keeps that collegial relationship going. The last part of this is, we can flip to the next one, is the essay. And you'll see the little text box right there. So it gives you that's kind of what, do not write yours in this, please don't.
Yeah.
Do it in a Word document or
Copy
Google.
and paste.
Because you're gonna lose it.
You can format it the way that you want it.
Yeah. You'll see you will need to, from the drop-down menu, select the NOAA organization of interest. You don't have to know this right off the bat, but I would say, taking a look at it, using that as a way to explore as another organizational tool. It does say here, the essay is a self-description of academic research and career goals as they're related to NOAA's mission and how your proposed course of study and or research will help you achieve these goals. Opportunity to present yourself, your aspirations, career goals in a concise manner. Include background information that is pertinent, graduate school plans, insight into why you've chosen to pursue these education and career goals. Don't just list your college courses. 2 to 3 page essay. To evaluate you as an individual, not necessarily as a scientist, your motivation for applying. And then it goes into, include any internships, research projects, or club activities. And it does give you this. Characters include space and punctuation. So just kind of be cognizant of that too. But right now, don't even worry about the 6,000 and 9,000 characters because it's just, you're going to write probably more than that. And you don't need to worry about a polished essay right now. Sometimes what students have found helpful is just to take like a piece of paper and put over their screen on their laptop and just kind of open up a Word document or a Google Drive or whatever, and then just basically cover the page. Don't backspace. Don't look, right? And basically set a timer for 10 minutes and just write, why do I want the Hollings? And just let it just kind of dump out of your head, right? And then go back to it. Sometimes it helps with that writer's block because this is close to $37,000 worth of funding, right? It's a big, huge amount of support. So you're going to have some anxiety when you're writing this, some worries and some fretting and some fears and some trepidation. So giving yourself enough time and space to get at it might mean you have to do some tricks, right? That you have to kind of figure out what works. Looking at samples or other essays are another good way to do it too. A lot of our former, current, and other applicants who have applied have all shared drafts with letter writers, or not letter writers, with Hollings applicants so that they can really kind of see and show you what they did. There is no magic bullet though. I've had students last year, like we had 9, right? We had 42 apply. 42 students applied, 9 got it. That's really great odds, right? Considering the year before, I think we had 6 and we had 38 apply. so we have good numbers, but that still means there's a lot of people that apply that hit all the bells and whistles that didn't get it. I have students that had 3 great research experiences not get it, and the student that had 1 okay research experience get it. The thing that separated it was the magic combination of their letters, their essay, and who they were as a student and what they wanted to do. And so it really takes some time to do that. And like I said, I can't say like this template will always get you it, because it's not that type of experience. It really is about you and you putting yourself down on a piece of paper and working with it. If at the end of it you don't get it, you still have a really good essay and a really good experience that you can then translate into other things, whether it's applying for NSF REUs, whether it's applying for programs where you can go and do research in other areas that's paid and funded. There's a lot of things you can do with it. The experience itself is going to be rewarding. It's going to be a lot of work, but the end goal is we're going to get you into a better place and into a space where you can apply for these things and you can continue to develop. But yeah, it's going to take some time to do this. So those of you who applied and went through it, tips, suggestions, hints, or what would you guys say?
I don't know. I was probably more the student that didn't have so much great research experience, so I was super specific about what I wanted to do, and I made that a really big point. And then also going through and taking the no emission statement, and it's in 3 chunks. You kind of divide that up, and then I went through, made a little outline of my essay based on the mission statement, and really made sure I incorporated that into it. So it was a lot of Noah, and this is how I fit all of these things, and really drilled that in.
I think before I started the essay, I made a list of absolutely everything I did from high school, extracurriculars, everything, and tried to fit it in where it would go and how I want to add it to my essay. And I started why do I even like computer science? And that's how I started off my essay.
And I think it's helpful too to have other people read your essay as well. So the Marine Science Club will be doing a peer session on November 8th, I want to say. It's the second Tuesday of November. So you can come, there will be Hollings scholars there where you can actually have your essays read and you can talk it through with other students as well. So I think it's good to just have multiple.
Yeah, you can't do this by yourself.
And we are both great resources because neither of us are scientists. And so, you might think, well, why would we ask you? You have no idea what you're doing. That is exactly why you want to ask us, because people like us need to be able to understand it. Because if we can't, the people who are reviewing it may not be able to either. We don't necessarily know who these people are, so running it by somebody who actually has no clue what you're doing is a good strategy.
Yeah, and you want to make sure in so many ways that you give yourself enough runway, which is why we have the campus deadline, right? That sets up already within your head a deadline that you know you need to hit before you leave campus. We also then, of course, do a fair number of those kind of virtual conferencing, kind of the back and forth, sharing drafts, and it's going to take some time. But the key is you've given yourself already the bonus point of coming here. I know that some of you are even freshmen. And I know that some of you here were last year when you were freshmen. Because it's good to get this information now in your head so that next year you're already starting and you're starting to make some wise choices. All of our faculty will provide great insight into the work that you're doing. So don't hesitate to talk to them. But be mindful that the next couple of weeks is registration of mentor meetings. So figure out when you can do this. Sooner now, before the mentor meetings really start crazy, is better. Or after, the 13th or 15th is, I think, the last registration. And so doing it either before or after is good, but I would probably do it now, kind of starting to see, chatting with your mentors. And like I said, we're all resources. Did everyone get through presents to do the checkpoint, to do the login? If you didn't, if you want to come up and get on the email list, what I'll do is I basically send out I send out a YouTube clip of this so that you have it. Plus I send a couple resources so that you can take a look at it too. And if there are questions or comments, you can of course ask them, but you can always stop by my office. Allison is also, just so that you guys know, if you go to the libguides.eckerd.edu/cat, and you go to the main page, you'll see right over here that both of us are listed, including our offices. Oh, it's just got my wrong office there. I am now in the Center for Academic Excellence. But it has our, well then we'll put your office in there too. We'll remedy that one. It does have kind of our information so that you can reach out, but you can always, of course, email, keep in touch, and all that other good stuff. So questions, comments, concerns? Who's excited? Yay! It's awesome stuff. It's gonna be fun. I'll send you a copy. I'll post the copy of the recording, and I'll also send it too.